Why armies feared the Irish warrior, from ancient clans to modern times. Why did armies fear the Irish warrior? Across history, few fighters inspired as much respect and fear as the Irish warrior. From painted Celtic clans charging into battle, to the armored Gallowglasses, to Irish brigades in Europe and America, their reputation followed them everywhere. They fought with ferocity, loyalty, and an unshakable belief that honor mattered more than life itself. Empires tried to crush them, yet rebellion always rose again. Even in modern times, their legacy shaped peacekeepers and athletes alike. The question is simple: what made the Irish warrior so feared, and why does his spirit still echo through history? Who were the ancient Irish warriors? Who were the first Irish warriors, and why did they earn such a fearsome reputation? In the earliest centuries, Ireland was not one kingdom, but a land of clans and tribes. Each clan relied on its warriors to defend cattle, land, and honor. Warfare was constant. Raids for livestock, revenge for insults, or struggles for territory. These men were not professional soldiers in the modern sense. They were farmers, hunters, and craftsmen who became fighters when their clan called on them. Roman and early Christian writers left vivid descriptions of Celtic warriors, including the Irish. They noted their tall frames, long hair, and fierce appearance. Some accounts describe them rushing into battle with little clothing, their bodies painted with natural dyes, especially a blue made from woad. This was not just for show, it was meant to terrify opponents before the first blow was struck. Weapons were straightforward but deadly. Spears were the most common, often tipped with iron and thrown before closing with a short sword or dagger. Warriors carried oval or round shields made of wood, reinforced with hide or bronze. Chariots were also used in early Ireland, allowing swift strikes and rapid retreats. More important than equipment was mindset. In Celtic culture, courage was a core value. To die bravely in battle was to achieve lasting honor, remembered in stories and poetry. This belief made Irish warriors particularly dangerous. They could fight with a recklessness that unnerved larger, better-equipped armies. By combining skill, speed, and a cultural devotion to bravery, the ancient Irish forged a reputation as fighters no enemy could take lightly. These early clans laid the Chapter 2. What was the Fiana? And why do they remain some of the most legendary warriors in Irish history? The Fiana were bands of young, landless men in early medieval Ireland, roughly between the 3rd and 6th centuries. They were not ordinary soldiers but warrior brotherhoods who lived apart from regular society, roaming forests and hills. Bound by strict rules, they served chieftains during times of war and hunted during times of peace. Their most famous leader was Fionn mac Cumhaill, a figure who straddles both history and myth. Under him, the Fiana became defenders of Ireland, but also a cultural symbol of courage, skill, and loyalty. Joining the Fiana was no easy task. Early Irish texts described grueling tests for new recruits. A candidate had to be able to leap over a branch as high as his forehead and duck under another at knee height without slowing. He had to run through a forest without breaking a twig or disturbing a braid of hair held in his mouth. Strength and speed were vital, but so was discipline. The Fiana were also expected to be poets and scholars, warriors of both body and mind. In battle, the Fiana fought as light infantry, skilled with spears and swords, able to move quickly across difficult terrain. They were trained hunters, which gave them an edge in tracking, ambushing, and surviving off the land. Unlike large armies, they fought in small, mobile groups, striking swiftly and disappearing before the enemy could react. Over time, their deeds became the heart of Ireland's heroic tales, preserved in the Fenian cycle of mythology. To enemies, the Fiana were feared as highly trained fighters. To the Irish people, they represented the ideal balance of strength, intelligence, and loyalty. Chapter 3. How did the Irish face the Vikings? When Viking longships first appeared on Ireland's shores in the late 8th century, how did the Irish warriors respond to these feared raiders? The first recorded Viking raid in Ireland took place in 795 AD when Norsemen attacked and burned the monastery on Lambay Island near Dublin. Over the next decades, Viking fleets targeted monasteries, which held both wealth and symbolic importance. These attacks shocked Ireland, but they did not go unanswered. Unlike some regions of Europe, where Vikings quickly established control, in Ireland they faced constant resistance. Irish warriors, skilled in ambush and mobile fighting, struck back. While the Vikings had strong weapons and longships, the Irish used their knowledge of bogs, rivers, and forests to even the odds. Many battles were small skirmishes, but they slowed Viking advances and prevented them from dominating the countryside. The greatest clash came at the Battle of Clontarf in 1014, when High King Brian Boru led Irish forces against a combined Viking and Irish rebel army near Dublin. The fighting was brutal and close quarters, with spears, axes, and swords. By the end, the Vikings were decisively defeated. Brian Boru himself was killed, but the victory ended large-scale Viking ambitions in Ireland. Interestingly, while the Vikings were feared across Europe, in Ireland they did not conquer the land outright. Instead, many settled, intermarried, and became part of Irish society. Cities like Dublin, Limerick, and Waterford grew from Viking trading posts. Over time, these Norse settlers blended with the Irish, creating a unique cultural mix. The reason this happened is simple. Irish warriors never allowed the Vikings an easy victory. They resisted fiercely enough that the invaders could not impose domination. Instead, the Vikings were absorbed, a rare outcome in European history. Chapter 4. Who were the Gallowglasses? And why did their arrival change the way wars were fought in Ireland? The Gallowglasses were elite mercenary warriors of mixed Irish and Scottish Gaelic origin. They first appeared in Ireland in the 13th century, when Scottish clans, especially from the Hebrides and Western Highlands, sent fighting men across the sea. The word Gallowglass comes from the Gaelic Gallowglass, meaning foreign warrior. Unlike the lighter, fast-moving Irish fighters, Gallowglasses were heavy infantry. They wore chainmail or padded armor, carried massive two-handed axes and broadswords, and fought in disciplined ranks. In an age when most Irish warriors went into battle with lighter gear, the sight of a Gallowglass line advancing with iron and steel was terrifying. Irish chieftains quickly realized their value. By hiring Gallowglasses as household troops and bodyguards, a lord gained a corps of professional fighters who could hold the line against English knights or rival clans. Their loyalty was legendary. Once sworn to a chief, they served with total commitment. They were given land for settlement and often married into Irish families, strengthening ties between Scotland and Ireland. English chroniclers who faced them in battle left vivid descriptions. They spoke of their size, strength, and skill with the great axe, which could cut through armor and shields in a single blow. To English soldiers used to lighter Irish hit-and-run tactics, the Gallowglass was a different nightmare, an immovable wall of iron. For centuries, Gallowglasses remained the shock troops of Ireland. Even as gunpowder began to spread in Europe, they were still feared for their sheer physical power and discipline. They represented the fusion of two Gaelic traditions, Irish ferocity and Scottish endurance, into one of the most feared warrior classes of medieval Europe. Chapter 5. Why did England struggle to conquer Ireland? When England tried to bring Ireland under its control, why did it face such stubborn resistance? From the late Middle Ages onward, English rulers launched repeated campaigns to dominate Ireland. On paper, England had the advantage: larger armies, better armor, and eventually firearms. Yet conquest dragged on for centuries. The reason was the way the Irish fought. Irish warriors did not fight in set-piece battles like those on the continent. Instead, they used hit-and-run tactics, raiding supply lines, ambushing patrols, and striking at weak points before disappearing into the landscape. Ireland's dense forests, bogs, and hills gave them endless hiding places. English commanders often wrote of their frustration at chasing an enemy who melted into the mist. Another obstacle was loyalty to clan and land. Unlike mercenaries, Irish fighters were defending their homes. Even if a village was destroyed, survivors regrouped and continued resistance. Defeat in one skirmish rarely ended the fight, it simply shifted it elsewhere. The English crown tried building castles, forts, and roads to pin the Irish down, but this only slowed, never stopped, resistance. It wasn't until the 16th and 17th centuries, with the Tudor reconquest and the brutal Cromwellian wars, that Ireland was finally subdued. But even then, English victory came at enormous cost. For centuries, Ireland remained. Chapter 6. Who were the Wild Geese? Why did thousands of Irish warriors leave their homeland and gain fame as the feared Wild Geese across Europe? The story begins in 1691 with the Treaty of Limerick. After the Williamite War, which pitted Catholic Jacobites against Protestant forces loyal to William of Orange, thousands of Irish soldiers chose exile over submission. They sailed to France, beginning what became known as the Flight of the Wild Geese. These men carried Ireland's warrior tradition abroad. In France, Spain, Austria, and beyond, Irish regiments became some of the most respected fighting units in Europe. They were professional soldiers now, well-trained, disciplined, and known for fierce loyalty to their commanders. The most famous was the Irish Brigade in France. At the Battle of Fontenoy in 1745, they turned the tide against the British. Charging with bayonets, they broke enemy lines while shouting, "Remember Limerick, remember the Saxon treachery." That cry struck fear in opponents and pride in allies. Irish soldiers also fought for Spain as the Irish Regiment of Hibernia, and for Austria in elite imperial units. Wherever they went, their reputation followed. Brave in attack, stubborn in defense, and loyal to the death. Though far from home, the Wild Geese never forgot Ireland. Many hoped their service abroad would one day help free their homeland. Even when that dream failed, their legacy endured. European generals knew that when the Irish were on the field, the battle would be hard fought. Chapter 7. How did Irish warriors shape the New World? When Irish immigrants reached America, did they leave their warrior spirit behind, or did they carry it into new battles? The answer is clear: they carried it with them. By the mid-18th century, huge numbers of Irish had settled in the American colonies. When the Revolutionary War broke out, their presence was unmistakable. Nearly half of Washington's Continental Army is estimated to have been of Irish descent. British officers even complained they were fighting a rebellion led and peopled by Irishmen. Irish courage stood out in key battles. At Bunker Hill, Irish-born generals like Richard Montgomery played decisive roles. Their experience and determination gave the young American army a backbone against Britain's powerful forces. Later, during the American Civil War, Irishmen again formed legendary units. The most famous was the Irish Brigade, made up largely of immigrants from New York and Boston. At the Battle of Fredericksburg in 1862, they charged across open ground against fortified Confederate lines. Wave after wave fell, yet they pressed on under green flags embroidered with harps and shamrocks. Their sacrifice earned respect even from Confederate opponents, who recognized their bravery despite the slaughter. For the Irish in America, fighting was more than duty. It was identity. Many saw it as a way to prove loyalty to their new homeland, while honoring the warrior tradition of the old. From colonial fields to civil wars keep rising against empire. If Ireland had been militarily crushed by England, why did Irish rebels continue to rise again and again? The answer lies in the warrior tradition that never disappeared. Even when Ireland seemed subdued, ordinary men and women refused to accept defeat. Rebellion became a recurring theme in Irish history. One of the first great uprisings was the 1798 Rebellion, led by the United Irishmen. Inspired by the American and French revolutions, farmers armed with little more than pikes rose against British forces. Poorly equipped but driven by passion, they fought in battles across Wexford, Wicklow, and beyond. The rebellion was brutally crushed, yet it showed the world that Irish resistance was far from over. A century later, in 1916, Dublin erupted in the Easter Rising. Irish volunteers and members of the Irish Citizen Army seized key buildings, declaring an Irish Republic. They held out for nearly a week against overwhelming British troops, artillery, and gunfire. Though defeated, their courage shocked Britain and inspired future fighters. The British response, executing the Rising's leaders, backfired. Instead of extinguishing rebellion, it inflamed it. Ordinary Irish people began to see the rebels as martyrs. Within a few years, the War of Independence, 1919–1921, followed, with Irish guerrilla fighters once again forcing Britain into a costly struggle. This cycle revealed a truth. Even when Ireland lacked weapons or numbers, the spirit of resistance made its warriors formidable. To rule Ireland, empires had to win every battle, while the Irish only needed to rise again. Chapter 9. How did Irish warriors serve in the World Wars? When the two world wars erupted, what role did Irish fighters play, and how did they carry their reputation onto global battlefields? In World War I, despite Ireland being under British rule and divided politically, around 200,000 Irishmen joined the British Army. They fought in some of the bloodiest campaigns of the war, the Somme, Ypres, and Gallipoli. At Gallipoli in 1915, the Royal Dublin Fusiliers and Royal Munster Fusiliers faced devastating losses during the landings. Yet their determination under fire earned respect from allies and enemies alike. Irish divisions were often placed in the hardest sectors, a sign of both trust and recognition of their fighting spirit. The 16th Irish Division, largely Catholic, and the 36th Ulster Division, largely Protestant, fought side by side in France. Their shared sacrifice revealed how the Irish warrior tradition cut across political and religious divides when tested in battle. In World War II, Ireland remained officially neutral, but tens of thousands of Irish volunteers crossed into Britain to fight against Nazi Germany. Irish pilots joined the RAF during the Battle of Britain, while Irish soldiers served in British, Canadian, and American units. Many distinguished themselves in North Africa, Italy, and Normandy. Though often overlooked, their contributions were vital. Whether in British uniforms or Allied ranks, Irish warriors carried their legacy of toughness, resilience, and courage into the largest conflicts in human history. On both sides of the Atlantic, their presence was felt, and their reputation as fearless fighters only deepened. Chapter 10. Does the Irish warrior spirit still live in modern times? With modern armies using tanks, planes, and drones, did the image of the Irish warrior fade away, or does it still cast a shadow today? In the late 20th century, Ireland saw conflict return during the Troubles in Northern Ireland, 1960s to 1990s. This was not a traditional war, but a mix of guerrilla campaigns, urban fighting, and political struggle. Yet the tactics echoed centuries of Irish resistance. Ambushes, small unit attacks, and an ability to challenge larger, better-equipped forces. British troops, among the best trained in the world, often admitted that Irish insurgents were some of the most difficult opponents they had ever faced in close quarters, unconventional fighting. But the Irish warrior legacy isn't only about rebellion. Since independence, Irish soldiers have served as United Nations peacekeepers around the globe, from Lebanon to Congo to Mali. Their professionalism and calm under pressure earned Ireland a reputation for fighters who keep the peace. The warrior spirit had been reshaped into something new, courage in defense of stability rather than conquest. The legacy also survives in culture and identity. Statues of Cuchulainn, the mythical hero who fought tied to a standing stone even in death, still inspire national pride. On the rugby field, Irish players channel that same fearless physical spirit, earning international respect. So, Chapter 11. What made Irish warriors so feared? What exactly set Irish warriors apart, making them feared across centuries by enemies as different as Vikings, English knights, and modern armies? The answer lies in a unique combination of traits that no single opponent could fully overcome. First was ferocity in battle. From ancient clan fighters to the Irish Brigade at Fredericksburg, Irishmen often fought with a reckless courage that unnerved enemies. They did not see death as the worst outcome. Dishonor was worse. That mindset made them hard to intimidate. Second was guerrilla strategy. Ireland's landscape, its bogs, forests, and rugged hills, trained its fighters to strike fast and vanish. Whether against medieval English lords or 20th century British patrols, the Irish turned the land itself into a weapon. Third was loyalty to clan and cause. From the Fiana sworn to Fionn mac Cumhaill, to Gallowglasses bound to their chiefs, to modern freedom fighters, Irish warriors could not be bought or bribed. Their bonds of loyalty gave them a determination few mercenaries could match. Fourth was adaptability. Irish fighters shifted from spears to axes, from muskets to rifles, from rebellion to peacekeeping. Unlike armies locked into rigid tactics, the Irish warrior tradition evolved with the times. Finally, there was the power of reputation. Once armies believed the Irish were fierce and unbreakable, that reputation alone spread fear before battle even began. In short, it wasn't one weapon or tactic, it was a way of thinking. That is why the Irish warrior became a legend feared across the world. Chapter 12. What is the legacy of the Irish warrior today? Now that Ireland is known more for culture, music, and peace than for war, what remains of the Irish warrior's legacy? The answer is more than many realize. Though the days of clan battles and gallowglasses are long gone, the spirit of the Irish fighter lives on in memory, culture, and identity. Statues of Cuchulainn, the mythical hero who fought tied to a stone until his final breath, still stand in Dublin. His image remains a national symbol of resilience and sacrifice. On the international stage, Ireland is respected not for aggression, but for its peacekeeping soldiers. Since the 1950s, Irish troops have served under the United Nations in Lebanon, Cyprus, Congo, and beyond. They are praised for courage, discipline, and fairness, qualities rooted in centuries of warrior tradition, now transformed into service for peace. The warrior spirit also survives in sport and culture. In rugby, Irish teams play with a physical intensity admired worldwide. In literature, films, and folk songs, stories of rebellion, sacrifice, and bravery remind new generations of their heritage. Even in the Irish diaspora, from America to Australia, families still take pride in ancestors who fought, whether in clan wars, European armies, or independence struggles. The true legacy of the Irish warrior is not endless war, but unbreakable spirit. It shows that a people can face centuries of hardship, defeat, and exile, and yet carry forward pride, identity, and courage. That is why, even today, the world remembers and respects the Irish warrior. Conclusion: the lasting legacy of the Irish warrior. The Irish warrior's story is not only about battles fought, but about a spirit that endured. From resisting Viking raiders, to defying English conquest, to charging with green flags in America, Irish fighters earned respect through courage and resilience. They were feared not because they always won, but because they never surrendered easily.